Hey there, everyone. It's me again. Oh, guess I should bring up my note cards. First off, hello, I'm Carpo719. Today's video, I tried to start earlier and I just could not figure out how to start this video. So I knew the solution. I went back in the house and I ate 2 pieces of cinnamon toast. They were really good too. Wheat bread. I need some better cinnamon. But anyhow, now I'm in here sipping this delicious stout, a Guinness stout. And I'd like to talk about a few different things. And this isn't a video talking about the negatives of the world. I don't even know how I'm going to title it yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere along the lines of don't follow society's bullshit or anybody else's models of reality. And my first card says beware of social structures or models. Now, models and structures are something that humans feel comfortable around, whether it be religious or political, any type of institutional belief system that allows people to feel comfortable in their daily lives. And often, these things can actually help us and benefit us immensely. Just like certain mentalities, like, for example, capitalism, can be negative in certain ways, but at the same time, they've inspired most innovation, or at least a lot of it, and we've built up to where we are now. However, it's never been distributed correctly. So we're living right now in a world where, as we were always warned, the rich will get richer and the poor get poorer. And I guess my point on that is don't allow the outer world and all the bullshit that's going on out there to allow you to determine what your model of the world should be. I know a lot of folks think that it's dangerous out there, and I think, it can be, depending on where you're at. But you can go into some of the most hardcore zones and inner cities, and it's not that you're just going to get mugged no matter what, or shot just because you show up somewhere. If you look at the statistics, there could be a dozen shootings in Portland or in Chicago in a night. But how many people live in the actual city? What are the actual chances of any one person? But we base a lot of our lives and our decisions on fears. We're scared. We don't want to take risks. We're afraid to take risks because taking risks means that, you might die. But the irony here is that living through this endemic that we're in now, and how ridiculous it is, like this whole Omicron variant and all this bullshit going on about people shutting borders again and locking down. I honestly believe we live in one of the most ridiculous times in history. Actually, probably the most ridiculous time. But I would like to think that we'll come out of it. But the way, as far as like saving people's businesses and livelihoods and states of mind, their ability to, it seems like after 2 years of this bullshit pandemic, we haven't been able to actually consistently deliver advice, scientific consensus, or even know how to properly act. Like shutting down traffic to South Africa, for example. Air traffic, that's not going to stop anything. We know this. They know this. And it's because it was discovered in South Africa. Because they have some of the most advanced laboratories down there. Because they study for things like Ebola. Several different viruses they have over there that they have to deal with. So they have state-of-the-art research laboratories. And my point there being that because of the model, the mental model that people have already built around this virus, their fear is consistently amplified. Instead of being like, okay, it's time to get back to our lives. I realize I'm going off in kind of a side tangent, but as far as my next card, scrutinize your world and mind. And that means look at all the evidence. Don't be a sucker for anybody else's idea of what's real. But looking through all the evidence for any particular subject can be very difficult, time consuming. So, it's not like you're always going to be right. We will make errors in judgment and we'll have to correct that. within our lives. But scrutinizing our mind is really where I'm coming from here. Because and the point of really of bringing in the pandemic to this discussion wasn't to talk about it specifically, but to use it as an example of kind of how a mass psychosis and a worldview and a model can cause people to have unwarranted fears for their own safety or their own lives. It's why I see people driving down the street in their own cars or walking down the street in the rain wearing a mask. I honestly don't understand it. I thought if it was a few people, maybe it's more comfortable for them, but all the kids are complying at the bus stops and walking to the bus stops. I see the high schoolers. The kids have just made it normal, and that shouldn't bother me. But it gives me a perspective on human nature, how easily humans are coerced into just following orders for public health. I get it, but the main point isn't to say that fuck. Where do I go with that? It's hard to even talk about this topic because I know people have such varying opinions on what's going on out there, but I guess that brings me to my next card, which is let your emotions flow. Be honest. And that's not something that we should take lightly. Being honest means being honest with yourself first and foremost. And that's one of the hardest things to do because we have to determine what's true and what's real and what's important to us. Every time you pick up this thing and you start flipping through a whole bunch of lists of pictures on Instagram or scrolling through Facebook or YouTube or anywhere else, you're getting sucked into a world of many different models and viewpoints. Many people who will tell you what you want to hear, many people who will tell you what you don't want to hear. And it's important that we are able to speak freely, let our feelings be known at all times. Letting your emotions flow. If you can't do it online, and the reason why I'm making the internet such a priority here is because the internet is where most people share their ideas. And it's unfortunate because personal connection is the most important thing that we can have. It's like behind me, this sign here. People want connection. I saw a guy, a video earlier with the guy with the sign, and it said, are you depressed? Free hugs, basically. I see free hug signs all the time at concerts, festivals, and everybody takes them up. Why? Because people want connection. People truly feel lost and left behind. And that's why I think what's going on in the world right now is so frustrating to me that as far as bringing the pandemic into this, it's been such a big part of all of our lives for 2 years. And we've had to endure all this bullshit. 2 weeks to stop the spread, then lockdown, wearing masks for 2 years. And then we find out that it's mostly the elderly population that's at risk, and most of them have been vaccinated. So boom, let's get back to life. It's a perpetual control. And people don't see it because they're wrapped up in that model. The next card I have here is don't bully yourself or others. Not bullying yourself is extremely important. A lot of people talk about bullying and they think about the kid at school, as if bullying is some new thing. It's funny, I watched a show earlier about schools. It was an older documentary. It was actually from 2014. They were talking about basically when schools started getting resource officers and police, how it often made things worse. The cops didn't treat them like children, they treated them like adults. They would arrest them for stupid things like being disruptive. When I was a kid, if you skipped school or you were disruptive or got caught smoking pot in the woods, you might get a reprimand. But you're not going to get a cop putting you in handcuffs. If my kid was ever put in handcuffs at school, boy, I would be fucking out livid. But at any rate, that's why I say don't bully yourself or others. But we need to be able to stand up for ourselves and not bully ourselves. We need to be able to stand strong in the face of adversity, stand strong with whatever comes our way, and not be wusses. And that brings me to the next card. Pacifism is not acceptable. And I know people may disagree with that. And pacifism is not the same as empathy, by the way. I believe in being cool, calm, and collected. But allowing things to take place that you know are wrong when you need to be aggressive, that can be a downfall for people. Pacifism just means that you try to handle everything with a peaceful attitude, to some people, but it's usually a non-violent approach, which is great until you need violence. And this is kind of crucial because a lot of people really don't realize how they need to protect or defend themselves, whether mentally or physically in life. Don't let anybody put you down or fuck you over. Don't let anybody control you or tell you how to live your life. Don't take anybody else's model for your own. I mean, read what you can, learn what you can. The more we learn, the more we realize we really don't know anything. And we can't just trust people to tell us what's true and what's not. I found this to be, ever true. So my next card here, everyone covets something. And covet love is the solution. And it sounds cheesy, maybe it is. But everyone's always looking for something. It doesn't matter what you have, how rich you are, how powerful you are. Some covet power, some covet wealth just for wealth's sake. Some people covet food. Some people covet cannabis. If you're a king or a leader, you might covet some fine wine or some fine china so you can tell everybody about how cool you are. And it's not just the wealthy. You know, it's the kid that saves up to buy some Nikes or, you know, some shirt he likes or something. Everybody covets something. And that's okay. But we have to realize that there's always something else to covet. It's a strange world. And that brings me to my next card, which is we're always looking for the next best thing. I guess the irony here is that I came up, or not irony, but coincidence. I came up with the covet something when I was tripping on some orange sunshine, which is a compound called ALD52. And my friend gave it to me, and there were tablets, but it's a chemical structure similar to LSD. And I took that, and I was in a really wild state, and I had this just epiphany about coveting, and you can't always define those moments and explain them. But the next best thing was the next card, and I didn't realize that my friend and I came up with the next best thing about 6 years ago while we were on LSD, and we were talking about the same kind of thing. How no matter how good life is, no matter what you have or what you think you want, there's always something else that you can get. And it's not always material goods. It could be some spiritual attainment. Even monks, they're coveting some sort of enlightenment, right? You cannot escape it. I don't know a single person on earth. If you don't look for something or covet something, then you aren't really trying. And we have to try because we need to keep our integrity, which integrity just means integrating into society. Which brings me to the next card. Integrity inspires others. And when you show that you're strong and you show that you have the will to stand up for what you think is right and you think is the right way to act and be, and you don't let others compromise that just because you don't want to be embarrassed in front of them, and you really feel like you've stood up for yourself, that integrity will inspire others to stand up for themselves. You might not realize it, but a lot of people out there don't really know what they believe. They probably just get their information from the news or a couple of Facebook articles or sources. Not a lot of people look at science or journals or really understand how most things work. It's very difficult for the layman to understand basic science or principles of biology. We have to kind of rely on the experts, but we have to stick to our own principles. You know, we have to look for the evidence. And so anyhow, on the next one, no self-pity. Seems pretty damn simple, but self-pity is pointless and worthless. The only prison we can really be in is the one in our own minds and the one that we set up for ourselves. Each day we have the opportunity to wake up and do something better, something more inspiring, and do it the way we want to do it. and others will interfere within the way we want to do things. That's going to be a natural part of life, so we just deal with it. But when we do decide what we want to do, when we get a job or we start a business, do something that feels right. The next card is be known for good things. But that also goes along with the one after it. Good is subjective. And it's important, very important to remember that when people say do something good or be good, that means really nothing until it's applied to your sliding scale or perspective of what is good and bad. So speak your truth. Speak your truth at all times. Don't be afraid to be embarrassed. And my last two, which were originally my first two, are these. Politicians and heroes don't give a shit about you, and leadership has failed the people, and the people are pissed. Now, a lot of people are not pissed. A lot of people have been able to hide away their true feelings about what's going on and say things like it's for the greater good, and if we just do this, we're going to be back to normal. I think most people have given up on that. Once this pandemic ends, there will still be that control. Those leaders who take away that control will not give it back. It's a well-known tactic to seize what power you can. It's like a land grab during the chaos or during a war. You seize what you can, and after that, it's rarely, if ever, given back. And the power that the people are losing right now, even though a lot of shit's going on in the world, and COVID has totally screwed up the way people interact with one another, we've started fighting about irrelevant things, there's still a part of us deep down inside that just wants connection. We just want to understand each other. And that's really the message here, that to do that, we have to go deep into our own minds. We have to understand what really matters in life. And I know people who, it's hard because some people are extremely codependent and they get too attached to society or other people or other ideas, and they're totally let down when something goes wrong. Non-attachment in the Buddhist principle is one of the most important things I've learned. Non-attachment, and even non-attachment to non-attachment. It's okay to like things or want things. Don't follow anybody else's model. Don't be a minimalist because you saw it on YouTube. Don't worry about it if you like a certain type of food that others don't like, or a certain type of music that's not popular enough. Or don't stop liking music just because it is too popular. Oh no, now everybody started listening to Modest Mouse. I'll never listen to him again. There's some very interesting mentalities people have. And when you're in a group, any type of group, you might fall into these kind of traps of thinking like those around you. Anybody who's in high school knows damn well, all too well, I've always been somewhat of a lone wolf. And I, at the same time, realize and recognize my own need for connection with other people, too. I appreciate the company of friends and family, loved ones, and but at the same time, I kind of I like to go into my own head and sometimes be left alone. And I think if we can balance those two things and really pay attention to how we truly feel inside, but also listen to others and what they're saying, I feel like we trust our intuition too much, we're going to get in trouble. Because our intuition is usually based on some past experience or knowledge. It's not the same as instinct. But intuition is what's based on what we've prior experienced or learned, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And it helps us navigate the future. But if our intuition is based on incomplete or missing knowledge, such as the fact that the media omits anything important that you might need to know, then we're only going to be limited to what we do here. I'm not sure what to do about it. You tell me. I'm going to head out now. Pick up my son from school. Try to teach him about the world as a 12-year-old. Try to explain to him why kids at his school all have to wear a mask when none of them have been sick or had any problems for 2 years. We live in a really absurd time. And the models that are put before us have turned the people against each other instead of working together, because they've convinced people that in order to work together, you have to obey authority. Let me know what you think. I'm out.